Hi everybody, this is Conni Brunni. I'm with ABCD. Accountability equals better community direction. Tonight we're going to be talking about what's happening with our school district. The Sarasota County School Board on August 20th voted 3-2 to reinstitute a mask mandate for all students, all staff, all visitors, all vendors to the school district and any school district property. The only opt-out, as far as I can tell, is with a physician's medical notice. In my not so humble opinion, and in ABCD's opinion, this violates 3 sections of the law. First would be the governor's executive order EO 21-175. It also violates the Department of Health rule, which is 64 DER 21-12, and then also the Parents' Bill of Rights, which is HB 241 is what people would call it, but it also is now codified in state law as Florida Statute 1014. It was a whole new section of the Florida statutes. So tonight I want to go through those items with you, let you know where this authority comes from, and we'd like to ask you as viewers, as the public, to engage in this process. As you know, ABCD's purpose is to expose what's going on, to educate the public, and empower the public to then act. And that's exactly what's called for in this situation. We've been quiet for about a year, but what is going on at our school board right now definitely calls for every single one of us as taxpayers, as parents, as grandparents, red team, blue team, and everyone in between to step up to the plate and be counted. Our children are counting on us. This is not the time to be silent. So I'm going to start this evening with the state law, which is section 1003.22. That's this, so you can see it. And you can look this up. It is Florida Statute 1003.22. And subsection number 3 is very specific. It says, the Department of Health may adopt rules necessary to administer and enforce this section. The Department of Health, after consultation with the Department of Education, shall adopt rules governing the immunization of children against and testing for and the control of preventable communicable diseases. This obviously would include COVID-19, which is where we're dealing today. So the authority in our state statutes, my opinion, is with the Department of Health in consultation with the State Department of Education. So you'll want to remember that for later because there is a Department of Health rule dealing with this. Separately, we've talked a lot about, and you'll hear about, the Parents' Bill of Rights. This was known as HB 241, went through the state legislature in this past legislative session, was passed and signed by the governor on June 29th of this year. It took effect on July 1st of this year, and it put into the state statute an entire new section, a new chapter, so to speak. It is 1014. That's this. It's about 12 pages. It is called the Parents' Bill of Rights. That is what it's known as. It does apply to governmental entities and other institutions and states that they may not infringe on parental rights without demonstrating specified information. 1014.06, parental consent for healthcare services. So obviously, when you are mandating a medical device, which a mask has been deemed as a medical device, that could not and should not, according to this, be done without parental knowledge and parental consent. The penalty for that is that the agency may impose an administrative fine, $500 for each violation. And it does also say that there's grounds for penalty, discipline, and other enforcement. So that's all in what's known as the Parents' Bill of Rights. And that passed, as I said, took effect July 1st. On the heels of that, July 31st, the governor of the state of Florida issued Executive Order 21-175. Thank you. And it does talk about, it's 4 pages. I went through it, and there are a lot of parts of it, mostly acknowledging that, well, there's good information here, so I think I should share it with you. Schools, including those that did not require students to be masked, did not drive community transmission of COVID-19. This was for the past school year. It also says a Brown University study analyzed COVID-19 data for schools in Florida and found no correlation with mask mandates, or the lack thereof. Masking children may lead to negative health and societal ramifications. On April 29, 2021, Florida Surgeon General Dr. Scott Rivkees, don't know if that's the right way to say it, issued a public health advisory stating the continuing COVID-19 restrictions on individuals, including long-term use of face coverings, pose a risk of adverse and unintended consequences and is not otherwise served. This means that the order, pursuant to the section we talked about before, 1003.22, allows the Department of Education, in consultation with the Department of Health, the Department of Health is allowed to put out rulings dealing with the prevention of communicable disease. And this order is telling the Department of Health, please put out an emergency order. And it does say they have the authority to do that. He's directing the Department of Health to do so. And find ways to, A, not violate Floridians' constitutional freedoms, not violate parent rights under the Florida law to make healthcare decisions for their minor children, and protect children with disabilities or health conditions who would be harmed by certain protocols, such as face masking requirements. And it does say that any action taken pursuant to the section above shall at minimum be in accordance with Florida's Parents' Bill of Rights and protect parents' right to make decisions regarding masking of their children in relation to COVID-19. I would promulgate to you, put forth to you that the new policy of the Sarasota School Board does not comply with Executive Order 21-175. I would also put forth to you that it does not comply with the Parents' Bill of Rights that we talked about, because it is healthcare. And now I'm going to read you August 6th. The Department of Health, the State Department of Health, did put out rules to all the school districts as an emergency to let them know their expectations of how they should deal with COVID-19 and its potential transmission. And this was August 6th of 2021. So this is very timely, very important, and it was done just as schools were getting ready to open. Let's have a look here. Summary. And it does give a contact in case anybody is out there and wants to know. It says anyone who has questions regarding the rule that's from the Department of Health should contact Karina Blakemore with the Florida Department of Health in Tallahassee and a phone number of 850-245-4732. I hope that that will be helpful to anyone who has additional questions regarding the Department of Health. It does say this is an emergency rule for the upcoming school year. The order, which is the order meaning the governor's order, the executive order, incorporated by reference, directs that any COVID-19 mitigation actions taken by school districts comply with the Parents' Bill of Rights and protect parents' right to make decisions regarding masking of their children in relation to COVID-19. That's right in this emergency rule. I would submit to you that that's been violated very clearly. Didn't care. Removing healthy students from the classroom for lengthy quarantines should be limited at all costs. And yet I will tell you that I attended the school board meeting and I listened to the board and Dr. Asplin, the superintendent, discussing that they essentially were spending all of their time since the day school opened doing nothing but contact tracing and quarantining kids out of the blue. I attended other meetings. Parents have talked about out of the blue, they would get a notice to come and pick up their child. There was or is no remote learning support for kids who were being quarantined. They were just sent home with no resources whatsoever, essentially as a punishment, a way to get them behind in school because perhaps their parents didn't drink the Kool-Aid, as I would say. So I'm not okay with that at all, and this is telling on August 6th that that should at all costs be avoided. I personally, ABCD, believes that this was a contrived emergency, that this contract tracing BS was all set up so that they could have an emergency and a reason to then re-implement their mask mandate. I can't prove that at this point yet, but it may very well reside in the public records and the communications between the board members and their superintendent. So we'll see about that. So they're telling folks not to be removing kids arbitrarily out of classrooms, and yet I can tell you that that was occurring. Item number 1D is students may wear masks or facial coverings as a mitigation measure. However, the school must allow for a parent or legal guardian of the student to opt out the student from wearing a face mask or covering, period. That is the state's rule. It also indicates item number 6, non-discrimination, and it's in capital letters. Students whose parents or legal guardians have opted them out of a mask or face covering requirement shall not be subject to any harassment or discriminatory treatment, including but not limited to regulation to certain physical locations, meaning isolation, isolation during school activities, or exclusion from any school-sponsored events or activities. So it's pretty clear, and this was put into law on August 6, 2021, and that's that Department of Health. The rule number is 64DER 21-12, so that you have that. And then we come to something that I call malfeasance, because on August 20th, the Sarasota County School Board, 3-2, voted to re-mask all children, all staff, all vendors, all visitors. Although right now, by the way, all visitors are banned from the campuses. So if you have a problem with this and your kids are at school, you as a parent can't even set foot on the campus. How convenient was that? Not planned at all, I'm sure. At any rate, this was passed by the school board on Friday about between 6 and 7 p.m. And I will submit to you this word, malfeasance. Malfeasance, very important word. And I received and looked at this up. My source for this was Legal Info Institute from the Cornell Law School. So I'm just going to read you this. Intentional conduct that is wrongful or unlawful, especially by officials or public employees. Malfeasance is at a higher level of wrongdoing than nonfeasance or misfeasance, and that defines what those are. But malfeasance is what I submit. The 3 school board members have engaged in an act of malfeasance that was very conscious and very willful. It was wrongful by all means and definitely unlawful, as I've given you the legal law sections. Although I'm not a lawyer, and I better put that in the disclaimer, I'm not a lawyer and I don't pretend to be one, but I can read, and I'm simply reading you parts of the law. So this was an intentional act on the part of the school board members. Today we learned that Mr. Dugan who was or is the attorney employed by the school board, has been released from that duty. Primarily, I believe, because he would not give a legal opinion that sided with what these folks wanted to do. When he was asked explicitly this question, is this particular option against the law or not? That was the question posed to him. His answer was, well, I will say this, and this is not my opinion personally. He did say that very clearly. I think it's inconsistent with the Parents' Bill of Rights. I think it's inconsistent with the governor's executive order. I think it's inconsistent with the Department of Health rule. 1, 2, 3. I don't know about you, but in baseball, 3 strikes and you're out. I would say 3 strikes to this school board, you're out. That's where we are today. And we all have to stand up and be counted. Unfortunately, the line in the sand has been drawn, not by you and me, by the school district. And we don't have a choice but to stand up for our kids. So I wanted to let you know about that. So what should we do about it? Here's the school board's I printed this from the school board's website. Let's go to the Sarasota County School Board's website. There's a COVID-19 button. You can push it, and this will come up. And it says, a face covering shall not be required for persons who present school officials with this certification from a licensed healthcare provider that the person has a medical, physical, or psychological contraindication that prevents the person from being able to safely wear a face covering. It's got a spot for the parents to sign. However, the next part of it is for the healthcare professional. So this is not a parental opt-out. This only allows for folks who have the financial wherewithal, the time, and the resources to get to a physician and can find a physician who's willing to sign this. Because many physicians will be intimidated, the same as we know has happened with physicians who wanted to prescribe hydroxychloroquine or ivermectin to patients. When that happened, pharmacies would intervene, contact the DEA, and the DEA would turn around and contact these physicians and try to pressure them into not prescribing those drugs prophylactically. So what we have going on is that there will be fear and intimidation put onto doctors, so there's a very big concern. And what happens to folks who may not have the financial resources or the time to go get a doctor? Their kid is trapped. That's what's happening. Kids are being used as pawns in the middle of a very ugly political game, and we have a serious problem with that at ABCD. That is complete lack of transparency, complete lack of accountability, and completely unacceptable at all levels. So we hope, and this is where we come to our call to action, there's a couple of parts here that I want to make you aware of. This is the state's constitution, Article number 4, Section number 7. Article 4, Section 7, Florida State Constitution. By executive order stating the grounds and filed with the custodian of state records, the governor may suspend from office any state officer for malfeasance, neglect of duty, and may fill the office by appointment for the period of suspension. I am calling on the governor. I am asking you to call on the governor to exercise his authority under this section of the state's constitution, because we believe that these 3 school board members consciously and willfully engaged in an act of malfeasance, and it's certainly neglect of duty, which is to follow the law, period. To follow the law. That's all we're asking to be done. Separately from that is Section 1008.32. This is from the State Department of Education, and it says, Section number 4, if the State Board of Education determines that a district school board or Florida college system institution board of trustees is unwilling or unable to comply with the law or the state board rule within the specified time, the state board shall have the authority to initiate any of the following actions. And it lists several, mostly withholding funds, but they can also engage in other punitive actions. And I'm hoping that the Department of Education will join with us as voters and taxpayers, in addition to withholding funds from the district, in asking the governor to exercise his authority to remove those folks who choose to thumb their nose at the law. We teach our kids that there are consequences to choices. This was a conscious choice. There needs to be an equal, and there needs to be that consequence. There's something missing here, and we're asking you to engage with us and make that happen. It will only happen if all of us speak up, I will tell you. So this is the letter that I sent to the Department of Education and to the governor's office. It is an email. I sent it to Governor Ron DeSantis at eog.myflorida.com. That's the governor's office. And I did receive an automated response that, you know, they're overwhelmed and they've got 9 million emails and it may take a while for him to get back to me, but at least I got an acknowledgement. And I also sent it to Commissioner, singular, Commissioner at F as in Frank, L as in Larry, DOE.com. So that goes to Mr. Corcoran, who is the Commissioner of the Department of Education. So that's where that's going. And we're asking for those two things: A, that any monies be withheld, and that any and all punitive actions be taken against the school board members specifically, and that the governor exercise his ability to remove these folks. We're asking you to engage with us, and we hope that we're doing the right thing for the kids, for their futures, and we're teaching them that sometimes you do have to stand up for yourself, and they're worth it. Thank you.